Welcome to the Cheplak Live podcast, where I sit down and I talk with proven action takers from the marketplace so that you can take actionable steps from what you hear. And today, I have the privilege of sitting with someone who's become a great friend, someone I get to work with. She is the marketing director of a team that her marketing drove to over 700 million in sales volume in 1 year. Mary Davis, and we're going to talk about where she started, what they're doing right now in this marketplace, and then a cool little project she's working on that I think you all find of interest. After that long introduction, welcome, Mary. Good to have you here.
Thanks, John. I'm excited to be here. I always love talking to you.
So the cool thing is in getting to know you and work with you, and I look at it as a friendship too, and being really close with Dan as a great friend of mine and someone I've had the privilege to work with. I got to hear the inside story. Tell everyone, we don't want to put a whole bunch of time in the backstory because I think people take away from the brilliance and the competency you can bring here. But talk about where you came from, how you evolved. Where did you start with Dan and evolve to a role of the marketing director of one of the top teams in the nation?
Yeah, it is a great story. I started out as Dan's personal executive assistant, and I would say definitely more personal than executive when I started out. And that was, right at a budding time in his career. He had moved over to EXP and just a lot happening, a lot of growth happening. So there was a lot of opportunity, but really, I mean, it was everything from ordering his food to checking email to helping the team. And, with everything, I was the printer person, the whatever, everything that needed to be done kind of person.
Well, but you were part of the family though, too. I don't want you to leave that. I mean, those
Yeah.
little kidlets, I mean, you're right there for the family. And I think Dan says, like, Mary wants to watch the kids and help us out when we want to have a date night, right? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, totally. No, I, in trips they've gone on, I've been, I would say, like, even a full-time nanny and beer home team person. And so, it's to where I am now. I mean, really looking at the opportunity to share an office with him and also, like, just learn more about what's inside his brain. He's so brilliant. And I think that is really something that shaped, where I am today, is just getting to be around him, listen to the way he conducts himself on just any kind of regular phone call, but really, getting inside his head, like understanding how his brain operates is really one of the biggest gifts, and like how that shift happened from there to where I am now. So I'm really, and I actually thought that, by the way, I did not want to share an office with him when I first started working with him because he talks so loud and he says I type too loud. But I'm glad that we made it happen.
Well, let's stop right there. I mean, this is, and we've never talked about this, and it didn't happen, but I mean, just for our own reflection, I think for other team leaders to think about, and also for people that didn't evolve the way that you did. They evolved. They were an educated, long resume marketing director that jumped right in. If we were going back in time and say you came with a resume, you had been a marketing director somewhere else. Do you think that it would have been a longer period of time of ramp up in the marketing progression, the growth from a marketing perspective, the business? You think you had the resume, but not the experience. I mean, you're this big time. You come with this big executive resume, not poo-pooing those people, versus you got into the head, the heart, the person, looking at that, because you've interacted with other marketing directors too. What do you think is the most powerful, getting in the head and the heart, or that big resume?
I think, obviously I'm coming from my experience and that's what I can speak to, but, we tried hiring those, experienced, marketing directors with big resumes, and obviously they have a lot of talent, a lot of brilliance. What I've noticed is just sometimes there's wiring that can't be undone. And especially when you're working on like a small business level, you have to be on, a lot of marketing people specialize in something. So come with a big, strong digital game, or they come with, I think most don't come with like a print media background. That's more rare, I think, for someone. I mean, I remember a marketing director that we hired who was fantastic, still a friend of mine to this day, but he, came to me as Dan's executive assistant and said, how do I put together a newspaper to send out? I have no idea how to do that. And so I think that it can be a lot of wiring, hard to understand it. If you're not on the ground level of a business, it is really hard to come in from the outside, even if you're the biggest, baddest, and come and apply that and apply your marketing. And I think that, I just saw some lights behind me. I'm going to keep going anyways. I think that it's just something could hold you back. So I'm super grateful for the way I came into it. I actually have a marketing degree, but I don't know what I learned in college when I was going through school. I mean, I guess it had more of a PR focus. But when you talk about applying it, especially in a small business, I mean, you have to be your capacity has to be through the roof. You have to be learning, studying, evolving every single day. And I think if you come in with the mindset of just like, I'm already up here, let me help bring them up here versus, just, I don't know, it's really I've seen it hold people back, and I am grateful for how I've entered into it.
Let me ask you this. Can you have and no matter what, because it's pretty neat. I mean, I think you probably came in at, when Dan was at 150-ish million. Well,
yep.
Right about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you come in with an employee mindset, or do you have to have an entrepreneurial mindset where, you battle your own boundaries of
yeah.
Because you know what? I have to operate. Sure, Dan owns the business. I own marketing, and this is a full-time, these aren't banker hours.
No, 100%.
Can you take it to the next level with employee mindset, or do you have to be an entrepreneur in that role?
You have to be an entrepreneur. And John, the way I looked at it, even from the moment I was an executive personal assistant, I saw it as there's opportunity within this business, and I'm going to prove that I deserve it, and that, I know that they need someone to do these things. So if that means I have to work over the hours or, what have you, just fully pour myself in, there's going to be reward on the other side. So I think that entrepreneurial, you can be an employee and still see not just the benefit for the company, but for yourself. And I think any true entrepreneur is a little bit selfish in that regard. So I'd be lying if I didn't admit that I noticed that, and that's part of what drove me to pour myself in.
Just let me, it's a very remedial question, but I want people to really capture this. You're highly competent, and I think that I have great trust in you and in the work that we do and will continue to do together. But if you look back, did your competence get you here, or did your commitment?
Commitment, 100%. 100%. And I'm still, I mean, every day, could look back at who the mental, what I knew a month ago. And it's just always evolving. And you almost laugh at things you said or did or whatever, but, you can't slow down on that. And so the commitment is what drives it forward. And that's all you can really focus on. Because again, in marketing, especially if you think you're going to win with your competency, like you're getting outpaced on that every day by someone. But if you can stay committed, you'll always be ahead.
Talk about the learning process. I know you're a lifelong learner. And are there times where you are learning right alongside Dan, or Dan is learning right alongside you? Go into that a little bit.
Yeah. Dan, it's hilarious, but
we can laugh about Dan, laugh at him. We can talk about him because we do it anyways. And we love that about Dan.
100%. But, even when we go to like a marketing offsite, for example, he loves to kick it off with listening to a podcast or to a chapter of a book from something in marketing. And we sit there and just kind of digest, take notes, and then we'll talk. Like that's how he likes to start. And I fought him on that too. When he first did it, because I showed up to our first like official offsite. We're really trying to be organized. And I was mimicking Laura, our COO, who runs beautifully on EOS. She's just shows up to those meetings, and there's a agenda and she doesn't let him ruin it. And I realized, like, you know what, we're in a different space. In the marketing space, this has to be a part of it. It has to be, learning built into the way that we operate. So, it has not always been that way, but, it's funny, like, even when I look back to when I was his personal and executive assistant, he had brought up to me like, hey, I want you, what are you going to be learning? What are you going to be focusing on this quarter that's going to move, like, just to improve your, skill set? He would always ask me that. And so it took me like a little bit to just, now I, am more in a natural flow of sending him, I want to go to this course, or I see this that I want. But that's just the beauty of working with Dan, is he's so willing to invest in learning. We do as much as we can together, because that just allows us to have back and forth. And I think, speaking back to getting in the heart and mind of him, like, that evolved into him bouncing ideas off of me because he trusted my feedback or like my thought process around it. So that's a lot of like how we work together. We went through something on YouTube that we did. And sometimes, he'll go into the beginning of it. He can't go to every course, so he's just expecting me to kind of fill him in. But it's definitely a very big part of what we do.
How about this one? Because I know it's been my struggle as a leader to learn, and as I work with, I'm evolving just like you. Last thing I'd ever say is, oh, I'm a coach, I've arrived. I'm a coach, I've got more to learn than everyone. But this is the one that constantly comes up, and obviously you've mastered it. But talk to how you have and how you would suggest other team leaders and marketing directors to work together on this one, because creatives typically say, well, deadlines are tough. I've got to create. I don't know if you've ever heard that from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No,
you mastered that, because you've got to have that space. And yet I know Dan too. Dan is like every team leader, unreasonable. Right? Do this, well, no, you'll figure it out. Talk about that, but also talk about the relationship. I guess a couple questions. Talk about the ability for you to come back and communicate and say, no, I can't, or I can, but here's what's got to happen. So 2 questions there. The creativity and deadlines, and then communicating back clearly with that team leader.
Well, that on the first one, I remember specifically, him kind of like, well, when it comes to deadlines in general, I'm actually a little bit crazier on like meeting them, and I come up with them in my head. So maybe that's why we work so well together. And I think something about me is that I'm not afraid to like push back on something. But I will say, I remember an email that I sent one time because Dan wasn't responding to me, and I made a draft and he didn't respond, and I knew the deadline, and I sent it out, and he called me a little bit in a frantic just because he didn't like one line. This was probably like 3 years ago. And we're on the phone and talking through it. And he's like, I think this is the first time that I've ever had to tell somebody to slow down and to just like, stop for a second. But he also appreciated that he knew that it was still going to happen. So, and the autonomy that I have in the creative space has definitely grown over time. But the way that we'll typically, and I tell this to anybody who works in our department, because I want them to have the same relationship. It's critical to their growth. I pour into them, but the closer that proximity they can have to Dan and I don't get in the way, they're going to flourish. So, it's all about like texting him nonstop. It's not just going to be an email game. You can't sit there and wait, oh, I sent you the proof and you haven't looked at it. And, I emailed it to you 5 times. Like, it goes back to understanding who you're working with. You're working with someone who's, flying like 90 miles an hour, and just finding whatever way, even if it's sending a proof of a billboard through text message. What do you think about this? Can we adjust that? If I was waiting for him to check his email, nothing would ever happen. And it's just something that we've, I guess, perfected over time. But what was your second question? I don't even know if I answered the first one or the second one, but.
No, you're good. Just looking at the ability to push back, and in the deadlines, and and then having that strength of purpose in the relationship is really what's most critical. What I want people to hear from you is I want the team leader that's watching and listening to this, and I want the marketing person, because I'm just hearing it too, is, you know, make sure that you have that personality.
Yeah.
It's a business mind, not just a marketing mind.
Yep.
Because I know that about you too. You'll nudge in the things that we work together. You always want to be out in front. And so, you know, if you're a marketing person and you're struggling, which, you know, in the relationship with the team leader, stay out in front, communicate out in front. If you're the team leader picking someone, when you pick that someone, you need to make it clear to them to, you know, this is a business. It's not just creativity. I think that's the critical thing that I want people to really capture, because I know that you stay on top of it. You know, don't be reactionary, be proactive in nudge them, because team leaders need that. They definitely do.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, John, I think you shared this with Dan, but the empowerment conversation that is so critical. I mean, for a team leader to go to someone like me, a marketing director, executive assistant, and say, hey, listen, I know that you're going to mess up. I know you're going to make mistakes, but I need you to, like, I fully trust you. I fully trust you. And I know that you're going to mess up, and I want you to try, and I want you to, you know, really put yourself out there. And like, if I didn't send a couple of like poorly copywritten emails that weren't that strong or great, like, how would I ever get better? And so I think, you know, even before Dan knew that specific language from you, that's what I felt. You put words to a relationship that we already had. But I think a lot of people struggle with that. It's like, you have to let people know very directly that you trust them and that you expect them to fail. If they don't, that means they're probably not trying hard enough to take on more and to take initiative.
Really good. What, just real quickly, so that the people know, what kind of staff do you have right now? Do you have a marketing assistant? Do you have VAs? How are you operating today in this marketplace?
Yeah, we have a marketing coordinator. We have a videographer and photographer who's in our department, who does listing photography and then also helps out with just, you know, filming stuff that we need for marketing. And then we have a virtual executive assistant for the marketing department, and 2 video editors that are also virtual.
Cool. 2 video editors. Okay. Really, really good. So let's jump in. What would you say have been, let's go to over time, since you came into the role, and then we'll talk about current space and time if there's been any changes. What would you say have been the top 3 most critical initiatives in the marketing, and not so much an initiative, but a part of what you guys do consistently, marketing for the organization that's had an impact, and not just for the consumer, if it's something in the recruiting space. But I would say, Mary, what do you see as the top 3 areas of focus in marketing that have had the greatest impact on the Beer Home team?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, you know, differentiation, and with that including guarantees, including just anything in our messaging that is going to set us apart, like even following the EOS business model. But I think one of the things as marketers that stood out to us was we need a proven process. We need something that is just going to, you know, in a commoditized industry, set us apart. And, you know, really Dan honed in on that even, you know, before I started working for him. But I think we've dialed it in with all of our, you know, all the efforts that we've made. So I would say, like, that space, that's Dan's bread and butter. I mean, that's his brilliance, that's his focus. And that has just been a game changer for us and something that has defined our brand in the marketplace. And I guess on top of that would be mass media. When we tapped into that for the first time, I mean, we spent months and months and months doing research. We had the craziest spreadsheet. I mean, you know how Dan gets with numbers and stuff. It's like he has to squeeze it down to the tiniest little, you know.
He's not on his cell phone half the time. He's got a calculator up all the time.
Exactly. He loves to analyze. And so we did a lot of research in doing that when we were approaching mass media. And actually it's funny because we ended up for a brief period of time working with an agency in the mass media space. And, they complimented us on kind of our stack that we came up with and also like how we negotiated. They're like, we can't really negotiate any better for you on that. So that's probably not to no surprise, but mass media was huge. I mean, it still is something that has changed the way that our brand is known and seen, and just put us on a whole nother level with billboards and, grabbing more radio stations, the buses around town. We're known. And that was definitely something that, and even in the recruiting space, this very powerful in the recruiting space. So that, and gosh,
but one other B.
Video. I think Dan leaned into that, a lot of it came from you preaching that, but we just leaned into that hard. Even, we're in the organic YouTube space now. We weren't always doing that. But it's obviously grown and evolved, but I think it's just powerful. There's beauty to a text email, but I think something that really changed the game for us, and maybe even paired with that mass media era that we were in, was people matching that face on the billboard to the face in the screenshot in the email, and then getting to understand him and just hear him speak. So,
really good.
That's just a few key things for sure.
Yeah, really good. What choices have you guys made? The one thing is you're a healthy organization. Dan's a fiscally responsible operator, and yet when we come in challenging times, we've got to be even more responsible. What path did you guys choose? Did you choose, hey, we're going to keep the marketing the same, we're going to pour more gas on it, or we're going to pull back? What did you guys decide? Pull back on some of the spend?
We did not, Dan's philosophy is to put gas on. So, even like when COVID hit, it was like everyone was kind of unsure, and he's like, let's go grab all these businesses that are going to get scared and they're going to pull out. Let's go grab their billboards. I want them, and I want them at a good rate. And so that's definitely been his philosophy. With that being said, I think this, challenging, changing times have, made us look closer at what is our return on investment, right? Like what should we expect out of a lead source? Just really dialing in and being honest with ourselves about we could go and create tons and tons of leads, but if we don't have these other 10 steps in the process to make sure that those leads are converting, and then we are just wasting money. There's no sense. It doesn't matter how much you love to put the gas on marketing. Nobody likes to waste money. So, somewhere in between, I think, but, in general philosophy is there's opportunity in times like this. There's opportunity, when other people fall back, you can, especially in those areas where you buy into contracts, you can just really, set yourself up for success on the other side of that. So, and even when it's not coming to spend, right? I think sometimes people in marketing, they direct, especially in real estate, it's like, what lead products am I buying? What, lead relationships? There's marketing you can do that does not cost money. And so you have to really just step into that role of maybe we've got to send, instead of sending 3 emails a week, we've got to send 5, and we've got to sit down and just really craft our messaging and our copywriting. But I think people really do forget that. And if you're looking at your marketing plan heading into a tough market, and you're not thinking that you're going to have to work a little bit more in the marketing space, whether you're a team leader or a marketing director, it's not just about dialing lead products on and off. It's about spending time really in that space and being focused on what can I get out today that's going to change something. What's going to get a response out of those dead leads that are already in my database? How can I get more with what I already have? So, that's definitely a mindset. The gas definitely goes on in times like these.
Good. Well, and I think what I want to, and not that you guys are sloppy with it, but I know a lot of people can get that way. What I heard is the gas goes on, but you get more discerning.
Yeah.
And really measuring and looking at. But I love what you talked about, because we've talked about, and that's what's so fascinating. Many people, and I think it's a mistake the larger teams make. They get that financial resource and they can do billboards and radio and television, the big media, and they forget what I call the little media. And what I want you to hear that Mary just shared, the critical piece of marrying the offline, like a billboard, a bus, marrying it with the online, not just social media or PPC, or it's like the simplest things of email. It's looking at the little things and making sure that you are literally multiple channels, because I don't know, it's tough. Attribution of where it comes from is tough. And so
Yeah.
you look at the body of what's going out there and see what that ultimately is. So if I think so, if you're someone that's not at their level of production coming up, um, everyone started with small media to get to big media. And here's what you're hearing from them too is little media has been very, very important to complement that big media. Let's go
100%.
to, you've done so well, and you're a visionary and an entrepreneurial spirit, and as is Dan, as a team leader who wants to provide opportunities. Talk about this little project that you launched. Has it been 3 months now?
It feels like it's been a year that we've been working on it, but
Well,
I do think,
it's been since day one that you moved into marketing, because if you look back at it, it's a result of your lifetime of marketing. Didn't we launch in like April or something like that?
yeah, so I think it's been 4 or 5 months.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, we saw just a need in the marketplace. Agents, obviously, everybody wants to get more leads. They want more consistent lead flow. And there's so many gurus out there, preaching how to do it. A lot of them have never actually been in it, and they've never, been in the actual trenches of marketing in a real estate business. And so it can be really overwhelming and frustrating for an agent to implement that. I mean, we know that firsthand. We know it from agents on our team. We know it from agents in our marketplace, and obviously in Dan's network. So, when he came to me, to you, with just this idea of creating something to solve that need, it was like a no-brainer. And it's, Marketing Inner Circle is the program that we've created, which is a monthly membership community where we teach marketing intensive. So big topic like home selling workshop, how to execute A to Z, webinars and how to, execute those, how to get, just dialed in with even your farming or your messaging, creating guarantees and all the copy that goes alongside that and the fine print. And so, that's what our program is. And also, obviously, how do you implement that? How do you put that into action? So we have office hours with me twice a month, plus obviously, John, I think you're in our Facebook group, and like it's just dumping in all the time.
I better be in that group. I'm there.
And nuggets, just nuggets of information and things that are happening. Like, again, one of the hardest things in marketing is that it's always changing. So it's, if you're not kind of working out that muscle, just like, going to the gym, you're going to fall off. And it's so overwhelming. Agents can get so defeated if you're going at it alone. And, something that people don't talk about enough, but to get a real estate license, you go through the training, the classes to take a test to get your real estate license. Nobody teaches you anything about business. Nobody teaches you anything about marketing or how to get sales or how to, how to do that at all. So that's a little bit mind blowing if you think about it. And so this is just to bridge the gap between that, and also just to make it as simple as possible for agents across, we have people in our program.
Yeah, talk about levels. That. Who all's in there? I mean, do you have some individual agents? Do you have marketing people? Do you have mega teams? Talk about who's tapping in, because I think that's, first of all, how many people are in that group right now?
Got 260, the 260s. Yeah.
Who all's in there? Talk about the different dynamics of people.
It's definitely a mix. We've got people that just got their license, and they are like, we actually had someone who wasn't even licensed when we first launched, and they were like, I want to get in, and they, got in. And so that's the, starting point. To people that maybe are a single agent, have been doing business for a while, but are definitely feeling the pains of the market. And maybe they just are ready for something more, want to get to the next level. And also, like, John, this, like, there's so much fear for an individual agent, any agent really, if you don't have your marketing dialed in because it's not consistent, it's not predictable, and you feel like you have no control over the trajectory of your business. And so I think for them, that, solves that, or helps them, soothe a little bit of that. But we've also got, teams that are budding into that space. A lot of people interested in the recruiting marketing that we're doing, that are trying to understand how to bring even marketing to the agents on their team. And then, moving into the mega agent space, we have that too. We talk a lot about mass media and getting, on the radio and what your spots look like and all that stuff. So it's definitely a mix. And that's what I love
six,
about
seven,
it.
$800 million teams in that group.
Yeah.
They were actually because the initial launch, like there was a cutoff. Mm-hmm. And people were very mad at us and thought and yet we were really, really clear up front, because we wanted to make sure that we delivered at a high level for that group. But the irony of it was your first adopters were mega teams that jumped in. I mean, people that have marketing directors. And so I think the reason to bring that up is not to say, because Mary already covered the basis that you've got people that aren't even licensed that are in there. But I think the thing to look at is these mega team leaders coming in because they know that their marketing director can hear from the brilliance of another great marketing director. They can be reminded of something. We get reminded more than we learn, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so you've sort of all break it down for us. So exactly what are people getting in that? So a typical month, what's delivered in that typical month to them, along with the access to information that they have?
Yeah. So a monthly marketing intensive, which is a 90-minute, masterclass style. We pick a topic that's often from feedback from the group. We do a lot of surveying to our members. And that's going to be, a full A to Z plan. We, have that. Some examples would be our home selling workshop, A to Z. Like I said, webinars, farming, guarantees, email, copywriting, what have you, anything, events. And then we have an hour, 2 1-hour implementation hours. So that's office hours with me on Zoom.
2 a month.
Yeah, 2 of them.
Really good.
And that is, encourage everybody to be on Zoom and people screen share directly, so I can walk them through something if it's something technical. We do have a software component to what we're doing so that people can just take our templates and use them as easy as possible. So sometimes it's that. A lot of times it's just debunking some stuff that might be getting in their way. Like my first question I always ask with starting out those office hours is, what are you implementing that you're struggling with? Or if you're not implementing, why not? Like what's holding you back? And so that's often, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes people just need to have a little therapy session, as you know, and then a lot of times it's screen sharing and actually just getting stuff done on those calls. We also write a Shake the Trees email for them every month, which is, direct response email designed to bring up those dead leads out of the database, get people to raise their hand if they want to work with us. And so we write that. It's something we actually send to our own database. We test it first, then we share it out with the inner circle. And then, John, as you know, the community aspect, which, as you mentioned, some of the mega teams in there, it's awesome. It's collaborative. And, you touched on something really awesome, which is the marketing directors in the group. But there's a lot of operators or even assistants on, that a smaller to medium-sized team that remind me of myself. And I think I would have died to have this. This is just, it's awesome. So I think we have a lot of those people diving in. And the beauty of that is like, they're seeing their path, like they're getting excited about marketing, right? Like, which is something, happened on my journey, is that that stuck out to me as where I saw myself. So that's really cool to see as well. And it's really awesome.
Where can people go to, is it marketinginnercircle.com? Is that the best place?
Yep. Marketinginnercircle.com. Mm-hmm. And that's got everything you need to, dive into the details on it.
And I think there's some sort of a trial offer that's hanging around out there. You guys can find that or track down Mary. I'm gonna hit you with one other question. What have you, because it's been beautiful. You've been through the craziness. I mean, in this short period, really, when you look at a lifespan of a career, I mean, I've been in this thing longer than you've been alive, doggone it. So you look at, I mean, but the neat thing is you've seen just this whoa and then whoa. It's the number one thing that you would say you've learned in your role over the last 12 months.
Gosh, I think that there's just opportunity, massive, massive opportunity in hard times like these. And I can't get that thought out of my head every time I hear somebody talking about the market dipping. Anytime, we have agents on our team that we're, John, you know this, but part of what we're doing now is just helping them grow their brand, their business any way that they want to. And so I do just see that. And it's a lot of, I don't know, just can't get that thought out of my head. So I would say that has been as you mentioned, like, I haven't been in this forever. So first time seeing it go this way, this
You got it all
strongly.
in a short time, girl.
So, that's definitely an underlying thing that I find has been formative for me.
Really good. Well, Mary, thank you so much for your time. It's my privilege to work alongside you and see you take action. I mean, the one thing that I want to really close on with this, and it's kind of where we started too. What obviously in listening, you can hear and see and recognize that Mary's very competent. But I mean, the one thing that is your make or break is commitment. So, Mary, I appreciate your commitment. I appreciate you taking this time and contributing. Thanks so much.
Thanks, John.